What's up, guys? Welcome back to another AusHoopers TV episode. Today I am kind of getting influence off what Derek Rock is doing with his top 15 players in the league, which I have looked at. I'm going to wait until he drops the next 6 so he has all of them out, and then I will react to that. I did see a few of the first 15. I haven't seen all of it, so I will react and make another video later this week. But this week's episode is my top 10 players that I'm intrigued to see this season. So that's not my top players, that's not my favorite players, that's just who I'm interested to see what they do this season, how they can impact their team winning, what the storyline is going to be for the season. Just 10 players I'm interested to see play this season in the NBL before the NBL Blitz begins this weekend. If you guys are listening on a podcast streaming platform, make sure you guys follow us on whatever platform you guys are listening on, and if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Helps with the support. We appreciate it. Let's get straight to it. First one's going to be an obvious one. I'm probably sure you can predict who it's going to be, so let's get it out of the way. Rocco Zikarsky. If you don't know who Rocco Zikarsky is, he's a 7'3" big man next star for the Brisbane Bullets. He's ranked high in all mock drafts for the upcoming draft. Defensive menace, can score. One of the biggest rising stars out of Australian basketball right now. Now, through 2 games of preseason basketball, Rocco has put up 10 points, 8 boards, 2 blocks. And in the second game, he improved much more. He had 16 points, 7 boards, 2 blocks. Very similar stats, only 6 points difference. But if you watched it, the eye test showed that the second game, he looked much more comfortable out there, wasn't making much mistakes, wasn't missing as many shots, and he looked way better defensively in the pick and roll. Now, why am I interested in seeing Rocco Zikarsky play? Because he is very fun to watch. He puts on a highlight show. He has big dunks, big blocks. And personally, I like watching his defense. I like how in the pick and roll, if someone's coming downhill, he plays in the drops. You know, he can guard the floater or the layup with his wingspan, and also cut off the lob. If it passes to the big man, he recovers and pins it. Very good defensively. I do want to see his touch around the rim get a little bit more nice. Obviously, that's going to come with experience in game. He is a young player. He is very eager to jump on a few attempts around the rim. Obviously, that will cut off as he gets more smart and, you know, plays more games at a higher level. But for those who don't believe in Rocco, you know, he's a great free throw shooter. He's very mobile for his size. He has a great shot form. It actually looks like it can be developed later on in his career. He can step out to the 3 at 7'3". That's a big positive to have, and the things that NBA scouts will definitely look for. And the Brisbane Bullets didn't bring back Aaron Baines, so Rocco has a chance to play a lot of minutes. I don't think he will start, just from what I've seen in the preseason with Tyrell Harrison. He looks like he's going to be a top 10, top 15 player in the league. Don't quote me on it, but he's looking insane. I'm a Bullets fan. I have to be. It's the closest place to home, and Tyrell is looking like he's going to have a monster season. If you don't believe me, please take the time and go back and watch those 2 preseason games against Melbourne and Southeast. But Rocco is right behind him now. Aaron Baines isn't back. There isn't 3 centers on this roster anymore. Rocco is going to get a lot of minutes. He had 16 minutes against Melbourne, 19 minutes against SEM. No one was out. Isaac White didn't see the court. McDaniel didn't see court. There was a few others that did miss time, but they weren't in Rocco's position. So he should play a big part in a Bullets team that's trying to make the 6/4 finals, which I haven't done in a very long time. So I'm very interested to see how Rocco goes this season. Hopefully he can up his draft stock and potentially be a top 10, top 5 pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Now, the next person I'm going to touch on is also a Bullets player. I don't mean to be biased, but it's going to be Deng Adel. Now, I've had Deng Adel on the podcast. Obviously, I'm not trying to be biased on this one, but I did drop a comment. I don't drop a lot of comments that I was saying he's in for a big season. I think he's an import. That's not an import spot. And I think we've seen that in the first 2 preseason games. He has dropped 39 points in 2 games. And if you squint your eyes, I saw a tweet, I think by Michael Randall, shout out to Michael Randall, that if you squint your eyes, this guy looks like Kevin Durant, and he honestly does. He's doing the high release mid-ranges. He's getting to the rim. He is playing very, very good, and he looks aggressive, and he looks very much better than the last time we saw Deng Adel back in 2020, 2021. Back in 2020, 2021, the Illawarra Hawks finished 3rd. Deng Adel averaged 20 minutes and only averaged 6 points. Pretty average season by him. Obviously, he came in with high hopes. Since the 2021 season with the Illawarra Hawks, Deng Adel has bounced between Canada League, Bulgaria, Denmark, the G League, and now he's back with the Bullets to solidify a name for himself in the NBL. Now, why am I intrigued to see Deng Adel? I think he is the reason whether the Bullets make the finals or they don't. Like I said before, Bullets have taken a long time, and it's been a very long time that they've been in the finals or been in playoff action in the NBL. So I'm keen to see what he can do. I think the imports are good this year for Bullets. They've got Bateman, which is a good import one. They've got Keandre Cook. Bit disappointing preseason, but I think he will get comfortable. And they've obviously got Tyrell Harrison. If you haven't watched it, I mentioned earlier, having a great preseason. They've got a great bench. They've got great defense. I think Deng Adel can be a top 3 scoring option on this team. And I think he'll play a big part and a big reason why Bullets make the top 6. So that's why I'm interested to see Deng Adel this season. Now, the next one I'm going to talk about is actually a duo, and it's on the Sydney Kings, who are currently the favourites to win the NBL season, and this is going to be Jalen Galloway and Alex Tui. Shout out to JG. He obviously gets brought up in this podcast a lot. I feel like he doesn't get the respect he deserves. Obviously, there's a lot of talk around the young guys in Australia and who's next to make the NBA and who isn't, and even guys making the NBA. JG was picked up by the Bucks. Not much was said. Obviously, there was a bit said, but not to the extent of where another player gets picked up in the NBA and it's all over social media. But he did some time on a two-way contract with the Milwaukee Bucks. They did waive him, but he did decide to come back and do another season with the Sydney Kings. He's obviously paired up with Alex Tui, who is the next star on the Sydney Kings. He did have a bit of a rocky first season. He'll be the first to admit that. I think he did on the AusHoopers TV podcast episode. But when these guys take the floor together, they are fun to watch. They are very good defensively. They've obviously got the size and wingspan. They play on each other's wing, and it's very fun watch. And this is why they're going to be in this video of my top 10 most interesting players. I couldn't add one or the other, so I'm going to add both of them. I could have just done Tui as he is the next star in the bigger name, technically, but I'm going to add JG in here. Now, there was a thing that I saw got put out where they're like, this bench is full of dogs, and they had JG on the sign. Is JG on the bench? Like, I don't know. He was starting last season. He put up great numbers as like a fifth option on that team, played great defense. I'm keen to see what these two do. Who starts? Don't know. Should they both start? Potentially. But I'm a bit unsure with this new roster. Obviously, they've got a new coach as well, so it's going to be exciting to see these guys. Hopefully, they can both make their way back into the NBA. Now, I know the Sydney Kings team has a stacked roster. Obviously, they've got Xavier Cooks, who in his last season in the NBL did win the MVP. They've got Cam Oliver. Last season he did in the NBL was averaging 19.6 points a game and about 8 or 9 rebounds. And they've got Jalen Adams, who in 2022 won a championship with the Sydney Kings and was named league MVP. He is looking to bounce back after a pretty rocky season as well with the Sydney Kings. With all that being said, I think these two are going to have a lot relied on them. They're going to play a big part in the Sydney Kings' success this season. Now, the next player I'm really interested to see play, we're going to head down to Melbourne. Not so Melbourne, but southeast Melbourne, and talk about their next star in Malik Lewis. I think Malik Lewis completes this great SEM team. I do think they need to improve in the big man spot from what I saw in the preseason game against the Bullets, but obviously it is just a preseason game. I'm not going to harp on it too much, but I love the offensive weapons. Matthew Hurd hasn't played a game, but I think Malik Lewis right here completes the bench, and he's a great pickup for them as a next star. And this is what you want as a player that is a next star on your team. This is the type of player you want. He's a 6'8 wing. He can space the floor. He plays defense. He's 6'8, muscly. He looks about 6'10. I'm excited to see him play. He played for the Mexico City G League last year, and he was the youngest player that wasn't in the G League Ignite. In his preseason game against the Bullets, he had 15 points, 5 boards, and 1 assist with 3 threes. He spaced the floor. He showed effort. He was on the offensive glass. And I'm excited to see what Malik Lewis can do. I think he has potential to make the NBA after this season, and I think he's got a big role. I don't think there's a better team that could have picked him up, so I'm excited to see how he goes. He's a young, exciting player, and that's why he's made my top 10. Now, the next player I'm going to speak about, who I think will be in the NBA next season, is Taran Armstrong. Taran Armstrong is the point guard for the Cairns Taipans. The Cairns Taipans have released a statement saying this is now Taran Armstrong's team. I'm pretty sure they said that last year as well. They've revamped the team. They've added 3 new imports. I think this is the year that Taran Armstrong makes a big leap. He averaged just around 3 assists last year. I want to see that boosted to about 6 or 7 in my opinion. We did see him at one point lead the NCAA Div 1 in assists across all teams. I don't know how many teams there are in the NCAA Div 1, but that is very impressive. There is another import on this team, Rob Edwards, who I have heard good things about. I've watched his tape. He does look like a great player. Does he compete with the 1 spot with Taran? Can he slide to the 2 and let Taran ball handle? Can they just play a little bit of both together? We'll see what happens there. They do have a popular big in college was Tanner Groves, who played for Oklahoma. He did 1 professional season in China, and now he's playing for the Cairns Taipans, so he will run the big man spot for them. And they have got a forward import in Pedro Bradshaw, who I don't know much about. We'll see what happens there. But there's no doubt Taran Armstrong is one of the smartest IQ basketball players that we've seen at a young age, and he is one of the best passers and most craftiest passers. He can score at a high level. I think he averaged around 25 or 30 at Nationals for Tasmania. So I want to see Taran kind of take over this season. I think he's in for a big season, and that's why he's on our top 10 list. Now, the next one is someone I expect to compete for the MVP trophy this year, and that is Parker Jackson Cartwright. PJC averaged 20.6 points a game, 5.8 assists per game, and he helped the Breakers to an iffy record, but they were riddled with injuries all season. They had a great coach in Modi Mayor, and they did make a fun play-in tournament game. They obviously bumped the Sydney Kings out. I think Will McDowell missed time, Finn Delaney missed time, Cheatham missed time, so they had a lot of injuries that season, and I'm keen to see how they bounce back. There's a lot of things he took personal this season. I know I mentioned before Derek Rucker's top 15 list. He did go up to Derek Rucker and say some words to him on the sideline, which was fun to see, and I think this season he's going to come back. He has re-signed with the NBL. He did go somewhere else. I think he went to the BSL League. I'm not sure where that is. He did leave after one game, so I'm not sure what happened there, but he did re-sign with the Breakers, looking to amend what happened last season. They have revamped the roster. They have got, forgive me if I say this wrong, Gillespie, who's meant to be a DPOY contender. Obviously, he was just in the NBA with the Toronto Raptors. He did do Summer League recently, so I'm excited to see how that new duo pans out. They've got Matt Mooney, who I've heard only good things about. They've got a few new bench pieces, which will lead into my next spot on my top 10 most interested to see list. Now, the next player I'm going to get up to is also on the New Zealand Breakers, and that is going to be Mojave King. He obviously signed with the Cairns Taipans as a next star back in 2020. The year after that, he moved to Adelaide 36ers as a next star as well. Then went on to play at the G League Ignite and get drafted by the Indiana Pacers. He's been playing and training with the Indiana Pacers G League team, the Mad Ants, alongside a lot of talented players. That G League team is very stacked, and now he's back in the NBL for a season with the New Zealand Breakers. Now, I'm really keen to see how Mojave goes. He needs to be able to shoot. He needs to be able to score on this team, I think, if they're going to be effective. And I'm keen to see, does he start over Matt Mooney? We'll see. Mojave King is a very talented player. There was one point in the juniors, at the very top age of the juniors, that he was regarded as the same level as Josh Giddey, if not better. He didn't play the last few seasons in Nationals, obviously, but Mojave King was the guy in Australian basketball, so I'm keen to see how he goes. Obviously, he's a great player. We all know he's talented. I think Mojave can average around 12 points a game on decent shooting from the three. I think he's going to play defense. I think he's going to get out in transition. I think he's going to be a very interesting player to watch this season, and that's why he's in my top 10. One of the bigger college players that was signed this offseason that is an Aussie is going to be my next player, and that is Elijah Pepper of the Perth Wildcats. Now, I'm not sure what they're feeding this guy. This guy is built, but he is a great scorer, and I'm a very big fan of his game. In the first two preseason games, he is averaging 21.5 points, 4 boards, and a steal with the Perth Wildcats. Now, I haven't been keeping track with their Asia tour, and some of the games haven't been televised, so I can't, give you the eye test and show you and kind of see what he's playing like. But through the first two games against the NBL 1 select team in the West, he's been balling. I don't want to spoil who I have next, but him and this next guy I think are going to play a huge part of being the depth of this Perth Wildcats team, and I think he's going to be a great backup for Bryce Cotton this season, and that's why he's on my top 10. Elijah Pepper is a flat-out scorer. He averaged 23 points per game for UC Davis in college. Obviously, we kept up with his college career as well, so we are excited to see what he can do for the Perth Wildcats. Just with these preseason games, making me even more excited, so keen to see what he does this season, and that's why he's on this list. Now, the next player might have been spoiled in Elijah Pepper breakdown, but it's going to be Ben Henschel. Ben Henschel obviously had the choice whether he wanted to go to college or NBL, but I think he made the right choice, as I think he's going to be a huge piece to the Perth Wildcats next season. He's a flat-out scorer like Elijah Pepper, and I think this duo off the bench is going to be very exciting to watch next season. Ben Henschel, I might just say it, could be Tyrese Proctor level. They play very similar, and these are the type of players we need on the Boomers in the future. So if you're not rooting for Ben Henschel and you are a Boomers supporter, I don't know what you're doing. Some pros to Ben Henschel's game. He can shot create, and he might not just be the best shot creator at his age group. He might be the best shot creator in the NBL. He's got a great handle. He's got a 3-ball. He's got a mid-range. He's athletic. He is young. He is only 20, just turned 20 recently. So I think it's time that Ben Henschel, we see him on some draft boards, and we see him make the training camp roster for the 2028 Boomers, which is in 4 years. He's going to play a big part. And this is the type of shot creating and attacking we need on a defensive roster. So shout out to Ben Henschel. He's going to make my list. Big fan of his game. The last player I'm going to talk about is going to be the Adelaide 36ers guard, potential MVP, DJ Vasiljevic. Now, there's obviously a lot of people that aren't fans of DJ Vasiljevic for the rebuttal he had with the Sydney Kings and the departure and returning to a different team. But you can't deny that this guy can get baskets. Now, I think he's going to be on a revenge tour this season. Obviously, Scott McNinnis did leave, and that is a big question mark, but I think with this new coach, he has a lot of NBA experience. You can't deny that. And with the team around him, with Jarrell Martin, Isaac Humphries, and Kendrick Davis, who we haven't seen yet, only heard good things about him, he is set to have a huge season. I don't think his scoring is going to take a backseat at all. I think he's going to keep that flamethrower. I think he's going to keep shooting it. I think he's going to average 25 points, 22, 25 points for this Adelaide team. And it's going to be stacked. He has a lot of pieces around him, and I think he has a strong case to make MVP. I know Derek Rucker put him at 14. I think that is insane, especially with the other players he put over him. I don't think they're on DJ's level. I think DJ's in for a huge season, and that's why he's making this list. I'm very interested to see how he goes, and I'll be tuning into a lot of Adelaide games this season. Shout out to DJ. That'll wrap up my top 10 players I'm most intrigued to see. Obviously, there's a lot of honourable mentions like Luke Fennell. I'm just a bit unsure if he plays on this Southeast team. Obviously, he's one of the younger guys in the league. Sean Bairstow, who we followed through college. Obviously, we filmed him in high school. He's signed with the New Zealand Breakers. I think he has a chance to play, but just not more than the 10 guys I listed. Lachlan Aldridge definitely will play more than the guys I listed, but I think he's already solidified to play and make his name on the NBA draft board. I am obviously intrigued to see him. That's why he's an honourable mention, but just not over the 10 guys I named. Lachie Aldridge is going to ball out this season, no doubt about it. Nick Marshall, I think he has a case for most improved this season. I think someone else in the NBL media mentioned that. Very obvious. I think he's going to play a big part in, like I said, Adelaide's success before. I think he's going to come off for Adelaide. Big fan of Nick Marshall as well. And Kelly Lupepe, obviously coming off the bench for the Sydney Kings. I think he's going to play a huge role. I'm hearing rumours that he could potentially start over Cam Oliver. Now, that could be a big reach. Obviously, I think that's a big reach, but that's just what I'm hearing. I could be wrong, but he is a big player. He's one of the strongest guys in the NBL. Obviously did a season with 5 seasons with LMU. So very intrigued to see him as well. But they're kind of who I'm intrigued to see this season. Very interested to see who you guys think. Leave a comment below. Subscribe to our YouTube. Follow us on your podcast streaming platforms and show your support. Leave a like. It would be greatly appreciated. And we'll catch you in the next episode.